Greetings. Today we are starting with the carving of the permanent maxillary canine. So I'm going to carve the right side canine. So as we've done always throughout, labeling of the block. Once I've outlined the length of the crown, which in this case is 10 millimeters, I've kept a little excess. And this is the labial, the distal, the mesial, and the palatal. So how have I labeled it? Now, since it's a maxillary tooth, crown down, root upwards, whatever is towards the midline is mesial, whatever is away from the midline is the distal, because I've labeled this as labial, and what is on the opposite side is the palatal. Now, what I'll do is I'll divide the line through the center from distal all the way crossing onto the incisal or the cuspal area, and then going all the way to the mesial. So this is the central reference point of my block from mesial to distal. Now, we know that in this carving we have a mesial slope and a distal slope. So the mesial slope is shorter than the distal slope. I'll draw a line through the center of the block here also, just as a reference. Okay, so we have a mesial slope which is shorter and a distal slope which is longer. So I'm going to make the mesial slope not reach this line of reference. So this is the mesial slope, and the distal slope will be longer, so it's extending beyond this line, meeting the mesial slope, and it's going to come all the way here. So now, placing the block down, use the lacrons and take the block straight down as per the line. So on the mesial line all the way to the lingual, and the distal slope which is going all the way down to the lingual. So you see the block has gone all the way. It looks like the roof of a house, only that the distal slope is longer, mesial slope is shorter. Now the next thing I need to get is my labial ridge. Now the crest of curvature, now I have to divide again the crown into three parts: cervical third, middle third, and the cuspal third. So now if I am going to, we know the crest of curvature is within the cervical third, but it is more towards the cuspal portion than you've seen in the central or in the lateral incisors. Now once I've marked this, I'm going to get the crest of curvature from here. I'm going to take it in almost to the line of reference. Here I'll remark this line of reference. So the tip of the cusp should be more labial through the line drawn through the center of the tooth. So it's more labial. If this is the tip of the root, the tip of the cusp should be more labial. That is the difference between the canines and the maxillary incisors. In the maxillary incisors, the tip of the root and the tip of the incisal tip are in the same plane, while as in this canine it is more labially placed. So here I'm going to do a two-plane reduction. So it's not like in my central where I just cut straight like this down here. I'm going to give a two-plane reduction. So from this junction, I'll first take it in this way. So it has gone off in the corner here, and similarly on the distal side. So this is a two-plane reduction. You can see a ridge formed here. Now I need to extend the ridge a little more higher. So coming towards that portion, I'm extending it. So it's a two-plane reduction. So it's slightly slanting as I'm doing that, so that in this two-plane reduction, I'm getting a ridge, a labial ridge, as well as I'm getting the tip of the cusp more inside. So you can see it is sloping again like a roof on this side also. So you can see it's sloping on either sides, and you see the angle here, it's gone more in. Here it's also gone in here. So I've got the two plane reduction. So this is my labial surface. Now what I need to do is I need to converge the block towards the lingual. Now the lingual portion is equally on both sides, they converge equally. Alright, so I'm going to mark a outline here and here. So with this outline you can make out that the tooth is converging towards the lingual. So the lingual dimensions are less than the labial dimensions. Now you should also know that the canines, their the mesiodistal dimension is less than that of the incisors, the central incisor, but its labiolingual or labiopalatal dimension is more than that of the incisor. So this dimension has to be maintained more in this carving. So here we'll just remove it on both sides, on the mesial side and on the distal side. So equally I have removed from both sides. So equally I have removed from both sides. So I have converged the block towards the lingual. Now on the lingual side, in this carving, I divide the crown again into three parts. In the cervical third, there is a cingulum. There is a cingulum here in this tooth. So I'm going to remove now the cingulum here. From the cingulum, the lingual fossa goes almost in a curved pattern. It's more straight here as compared to the incisors. Incisors, it was more curved. Here it's straight, and it has a two-plane reduction here on the lingual also, because you may have a lingual ridge on the lingual surface dividing the lingual fossa into two. So a mesiolingual and a distolingual fossa may be there. So mesiolingual here, on distolingual this side. So again a two-plane reduction, removing it one plane this way and one plane that way, giving it a two-plane reduction. So you can see again there is a two-plane reduction here. So the lingual ridge, if I look from this side, I can see the lingual ridge is ahead, and this is your mesial marginal ridge that is towards this side. Similarly on the distal side, this is the lingual ridge and this is the distal marginal ridge. We'll refine it later. Now the next step that I'm going to do is, from the mesial side, I'm going to now take the length all the way. Whatever I've carved onto the crown, I'm going to carve the length of the root. Use your divider. Measure 17 millimeters on the divider. Roughly you can measure it. There's 17 or 16. You can make it because you want a little shorter, and you mark it. Once you mark it, you make the line throughout. Now once we've done that, we'll remove the, as per this again, the palm grip. As per the shape of the crown, take it down all the way onto the root. Straight down. Just highlighting that marking again so that I don't overshoot. I've slightly overshot it here. Don't do that. Okay, so roughly I've got the shape onto the root. Just round off the angles. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to give the cervical outline. So on the labial, my cervical outline will start from here. Just outline the cervical line roughly. So it has to be convex on the labial. And now coming to the distal, it dips in by around 1.5 millimeters. So you can put this as a line of reference from here. Extend the line of reference all the way around. And then you can measure 1.5 here, mark it, and bring this down to the line of reference as 1.5. And then you can outline here. This will be 2.5. So again, measure it 2.5 and extend it all the way. Now once you've done that, on the mesial side, you will remove as per the outline. So on the mesial, I am removing it as per the outline. Keep your lacrons flat on the surface and then remove it. Now on the distal side, we know that the outline from the cervical line is a concave outline. To get this concave outline, we have to remove more from the distal as per the cervical outline. So you can see I've removed more from the distal as compared to the mesial. Okay, there is a sticking out here. Now I will remove the root as well as I'm converging the the root towards the lingual. Now similarly on the mesial side, I'll remove a little from this corner. And a little bit from the corner distally also. Now you can see that the crown is sticking out here and it's going this way. So I want it to converge coming inwards like this. So what I'll do is I'll just place my lacrons here as per the shape here. I'll remove this. So you can see that there is slight convergence now towards the cervical. Now on my distal side, you can see it's jutting out. What I'll do, placing my lacrons from the crown portion, I'll just make it slightly go this way. Curve it. I want a concavity here, so that I get a sort of a concavity towards the cervical. So here you have a sort of a concavity towards the cervical. So you can see the concavity has come here, there's a convexity here, and this is a convex outline here. Now I need to further give a prominence to the labial ridge. So again I'm giving it a two-plane reduction to get it a little prominent. Now I need to carve my cervical portion, which has to be convex. So I'll remove from both mesial and distal, make it convex, the cervical outline. Now what I've removed below this cervical line, the bulkiness of the root, I have to take it straight down on both the angles, more on the angles than on the labial face of the root. And you can see now it is projecting out. You can see it is projecting out. So place my lacrons here, just go smoothly from mesial to distal, distal to mesial, so that we get the convex area here. So crest of curvature immediately comes out in this area, more towards the cuspal portion as compared to central incisors. Again we highlight the cervical line, take it to the lingual. We need to make the cingulum now area. So take it straight down below the cingulum area where I've removed the wax cervically so that it smoothly merges. I'm just converging the root towards the lingual also. You can see it's bulky here. It's bulky towards the apical. I need to converge it towards the lingual first, and then I will do the convergence apically. Now let's finish the cingulum area. We'll make it more, curve it up as per the prominence, give the prominence to the cingulum. Just smoothen all these angles. Just run your lacrons very smoothly from the cervical to the cuspal tip, only on the lingual. Don't do that on the mesial or the distal, otherwise we'll have the crown converging towards the cuspal portion. So we want it on the mesial or on the distal, you have to converge it towards the cervical, from starting from the cuspal portion to the cervical. The main thing that you need to do is, first you need to do the gross carving. You take more time in the finishing. So gross carving takes less of time, and this is the finishing that we are doing now. So when we look at the root, it converges to the apical. It's conical in shape, converges to the apical. On the labial, it's more of a straight outline, not much of convergence. So we're going to give very little apical convergence here on the labial. We are going to give more of the apical convergence from the lingual. So you can see more of the apical convergence coming from the lingual aspect. First a straight outline, from the cervical, then apically more convergence from the lingual. Now mesially and distally also you need to converge the root. So both on the mesial and distal in the apical third you need to converge the root. I've got somewhat convergence from this side. Similarly on the opposite side, it's on the distal. I have to get some apical convergence. Make sure similar at the same time you're making the base smooth. So the base has to be smooth and uniform. So gradually what we are seeing is that root is taking form, converging it lingually. So gradually we see the shape is coming up. This is my pen grip, which I'm taking proper support while I'm doing this. It's a grip that we need to get used to as dentists. So I've smoothened out the root. Now let me finish with the crown also. Cervical throughout. This is on the labial. On the distal, I want that concavity maintained. I'll scoop it out slightly here. So that you have that slight concavity here. The labial surface, the root is more convex. The surface is convex, so just smoothen it so it's convex. Now what I need to do is use a rough outline. Take my gauze, just polish the surface. Just remove any further irregularities with the gauze. So now I've finished polishing it slightly, removing all the roughness. Okay, and now what we need to do is to make the lingual developmental depressions. So the lingual fossas actually. So on mesially and distally, I'll just give it a slight slant, and with my lacrons, with the reverse of the lacrons, there's the mesial. Place it here. Just take it upwards. Make it slightly like a triangular depression. On either side of the lingual fossa. That's my mesial. On to the distal. Making it slightly triangular. Now in most of the canines that you may see, you won't find such a prominent depression because it gets worn off. So here let's make the developmental depressions on either side. So you have the lingual ridge, and on either side you have the developmental depression. Now on the roots also, both mesially and distally, you have developmental depressions. Now on the mesial side, it's relatively broad and shallow, whereas on the distal side it's more deeper. So that's my mesial side. Now on the distal side, I'll make it more deeper. Whatever loose wax is there, you can remove it off. And that is it. So here we have finished with the carving. You can further polish it to get the final proper finish. So let's see the tooth from all aspects once again. So this is the tooth from labial aspect. You can see the cervical line is convex. The mesial outline is slightly convex from the cervical line. Distal has a slight concavity here just below the cervical line, and the convexity, which is a crest of curvature, which is located in the middle of the middle third. The mesial crest of curvature is located at the junction of the middle and the cuspal third. The mesial slope is shorter, distal slope is longer. Now when we look at the tooth, you can see that the root is convex, the labial surface is convex. You can see the labial ridge running onto this surface, and it goes in a mesial direction. Now when we look at the tooth from the mesial aspect, we can see that the tip of the cuspal tip is more labially placed as compared to the long axis of the tooth. So it's more labially placed. You can see the dip of the cervical line, and you can see the convex outline of the cingulum, slight straight outline of the lingual ridge, and then a convex outline again for the cuspal portion. Now when we look at it from the distal aspect also, we see there is a developmental depression, but it's more deeper on the distal as compared to the mesial. Mesial is more shallow. Now here when we look at the tooth from the lingual aspect, we can see that both the crown and the root are converging lingually. So they're converging lingually, and we can see the two lingual fossas on either side of the lingual ridge. So lingual ridge is dividing starting from the cingulum area. It goes all the way to the cuspal tip and divides the fossa into a mesial and a distal fossa, which is also well supported or well surrounded by the marginal ridges. So here's the mesial marginal ridge, this is the distal marginal ridge. Now when we look at the tooth from the cuspal aspect, from the incisal or the cuspal view, you can see that the let me hold it this way. You can see that you can see more of the labial surface. You can see labial and as well as the lingual surface, and you can see that the crown is stretched on the distal. So it is stretched on the distal to have contact with the mesial surface of the premolar. So the crown seems to be stretched on the distal. The mesial side looks smaller, but if I cut it in the center, the roots will be equal on both sides, showing that the crown is stretched on the distal. So it's stretched on the distal. The greater dimension is your labiopalatal dimension.